Good evening everybody, and a very warm welcome to the RCVS Veterinary Nurse Evening. My name is Belinda Andrews-Jones and I'm the Vice Chair of VN Council. I am honoured to be leading the proceedings this evening for the first time and delighted that so many of you are able to join online. I'm very much looking forward to welcoming all of you to the recently qualified to the profession, as well as celebrating the achievements of our successful candidates of the Certificate of Advanced Veterinary Nursing. Whilst we're not able to applaud in person of your accomplishments, our virtual format this evening does mean that it's easier for more of your colleagues, family and friends, members to attend and cheer on. I hope you all have glasses charged and something suitably celebratory. I became Vice Chair of VN Council last summer in what is an extremely challenging year for the profession. Although that I've worked in the veterinary nurse profession for over 30 years, I've included stints in first opinion, farm, equine, as well as university and teaching posts. And I've also been a director of nursing for one of the large corporates. I can safely say that this year has been one of the most demanding periods I've ever yet to experience. It is also the year where I'm sure that all of you I've learnt a lot and pushed myself out of my comfort zone. I'm incredibly proud of our profession and how we've responded to the pandemic, often going above and beyond to look for ways to help animals and with their care. If I may say to myself today, you are joining a truly passionate and dedicated profession. I must particularly commend those that are being welcomed to the profession today, as you have completed your qualification during a very tough time. It has been is not easy, and you should really take pride in your achievements. So this evening we have a very interesting programme ahead of us, which I do hope you will enjoy. Happily, I have been joined this evening by several RCVS colleagues throughout this evening, starting with Tori Page, our VN Qualifications Assessor, who will shortly be taking us through the achievements and advancements of our profession in what is a truly remarkable year of the 60th anniversary of veterinary nursing. Next, Matthew Rendell, Chair of VN Council, will lead us, all the new VNs, through the professional declaration before we will formally welcome them to our special online admissions ceremony. We will also congratulate those that qualified through overseas and are now registered in the UK, as well as those who have obtained their Certificate in Advanced Veterinary Nursing, which is the Cert AVN. Jill MacDonald, VN Futures Project Lead, will then give us a quick overview of the latest VN Futures of their activities. And then I'm delighted that Dr. Kate Richards, President of the RCVS, is also here tonight to deliver a formal address. Finally, Matthew will join us again to deliver this evening's keynote presentation, where he will take us through some highlights of his 30-year career and his own experience of mental health within the profession. He has some fascinating insights to share with us. So to get us through the evening underway, I would like to introduce my colleague Tori, who will say a few words of the profession's recent achievements.
Thank you, Belinda, and good evening, everyone. I'm thrilled to be joining you this evening in what is the veterinary nursing profession's Diamond Jubilee year. 2021 marks 60 years since the launch of the first RCVS-approved animal nursing auxiliary training scheme. I will say more about the Diamond Jubilee and the ways that we have marked the occasion a little later, but safe to say we have come a long way since the first Ranas, as they were known, undertook their training. 2021 is a landmark year for veterinary nursing in many ways, as it has been several firsts for our profession. We have seen new VN apprenticeships undertake endpoint assessments and entering the register for the first time. This was also the first year that RVNs were able to become practice standards assessors. Renee Picard, the first RVN practice standards assessor, was appointed this August, and she told us how the development of veterinary nurses is a huge passion of hers. Her appointment was a great achievement, and we are really proud that the profession has now been recognised in this way. This is a milestone for veterinary nursing, as PSS assessors are tasked with making sure accredited practices aim to provide the highest standard of veterinary care. I'm sure more RVNs will be joining her in the future. We also reached the milestone of 20,000 VNs on the register this year. I'm sure I'm not the only one who is incredibly proud to see just how far the profession has grown, not just in number, but in stature, over the years, and long may this continue. Furthermore, we are very pleased to be joined this evening by 2 vet nurses from the first cohort of these completing the Certificate in Advanced Veterinary Nursing, or CERT-AVN. I want to take the opportunity to congratulate them on their successful studies, as this can't have been easy to do alongside a veterinary nursing role. This qualification was set up to encourage veterinary nurses to advance their skills in areas where they have a particular interest, and I want to thank the VN Futures team who led on the development of the qualification. Following on from the success of the CERT-AVN, we are now looking at the possibility of developing statuses for veterinary nurses, which would be the first of their kind. These are all tremendous advances for our profession and well worth celebrating. Later on this evening, I shall tell you a little more about how we have been doing just that.
Thank you very much, Tori. We turn now to the Veterinary Nurse Professional Declaration. Being entered into the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons Registry of Veterinary Nurses is a monumentous occasion. It is the formal start of your professional career, and it allows you to legally practice as a veterinary nurse in the UK, and means you will be expected to abide by the VN Code of Professional Conduct and be truly accountable professional. Your professional declaration encapsulates your role and responsibilities as a veterinary nurse and is made by all those that join the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons Registry of Veterinary Nurses. I will now hand over to Matthew to lead our newly registered nurses through the declaration.
Thank you, Belinda. Normally, of course, we would all be standing in the same room to make the professional declaration. Tonight, even though we are all sitting apart, it's still important we all say this together. So to help me with this, I'm delighted to be joined on screen this evening by a few of our newly qualified VN colleagues who have kindly volunteered to keep me company. You should all take huge pride in repeating after me these hugely important lines, so wherever you are this evening, do please join in with me now. I promise and solemnly declare
I promise and solemnly declare
that I will pursue the work of my profession with integrity
that I will pursue the work of my profession with integrity
and accept my responsibilities
and accept my responsibilities
to the public, my clients, the profession and the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons.
to the public, my clients, the profession, and the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons,
And that above all, my constant endeavour will be
and that above all, my constant endeavour will be
to ensure the health and welfare of the animals committed to my care.
to ensure the health and welfare of animals committed to my care.
In the name of the Council of the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons, and by virtue of the power conferred upon them by Royal Charter and by Act of Parliament, I do hereby admit you as associates of the said Royal College, and by the same power do confer upon you the right to be styled registered veterinary nurses, and to be known and deemed and recognised henceforth as duly qualified members of the veterinary profession. Congratulations. Many congratulations to all of you making your professional declaration this evening. It's always stirring to hear those words being said out loud, and I know your families, friends and colleagues will be rightly very proud of you.
Thank you, Matthew, and many congratulations to you all. We will now move over to the formal admission to the registry. As we are all not in the same room, this evening you will now like to display a virtual stage which features the names and photos of veterinary nurses who have recently joined the VN Register. We have also received a few messages of support and congratulations from one or two well-known faces in our profession. So watch out for those, and please don't forget to cheer loudly when you hear your name called out.
Charlotte Ansell,
Elizabeth Atfield Haynes,
Jenny Bissix Carter,
Paige Blackmore.
Harriet Boniface.
Sophie Booth.
Julianne Bratley.
Lauren Breslin.
Naomi Buckingham.
Joanne Calvesbert.
Hannah Cardy.
Jade Chenery.
Laura Chivers.
Megan Cooper.
Chloe Cotton.
Kira Crane.
Julie Crute.
Rebecca Davies.
Dawn Deacon.
Charlie Deacon.
Lara Dixon.
Naomi Driver.
Samantha Edwards.
Rio Evans.
Rachel Fern.
Stacey Fitzgerald.
Ursula Geiselman.
Katie Gibbons.
Holly Gillespie.
Lisa Gormall.
Good evening. I would like to congratulate you all on your recent achievement of joining the RCVS register while gaining an advanced vet nursing qualification. As newly registered nurses, you will be responsible for advancing the profession into the future. So well done again on your achievement, and I hope you rise to the challenge of being the best RVN you can be. Well done.
Hi everyone, welcome to this evening's event. My name is Alexandra Taylor and I'm the President of the British Veterinary Nursing Association. I'd like to start by saying congratulations to all of you who are now registered veterinary nurses. This is a really big achievement, well done. I also wanted to congratulate anybody who's achieved the Certificate in Advanced Veterinary Nursing. This is a really big achievement as well. You should all be super proud of yourselves. So congratulations everybody, and I'll let you get on and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.
Sarah Granger.
Emily Gray.
Grace Hall.
Georgia Homden.
Hannah Jessup.
Hannah John Whittaker.
Declan Jones.
Nicola Jones.
Katie King. Amy Lloyd.
Natasha Lloyd. Fiona Lockhead.
Georgia Lowe.
Elizabeth McKay.
Ella Maloney.
Kirsty Manville.
Rebecca Martin.
Caroline McCormick Clark.
Laura Mickey.
Kerrin Milburn.
Amy Morris.
Abigail Moss.
Catriona Muir.
Amy Musgrove Bush.
Chloe Oakford.
Isabella Papp.
Charlotte Pilbeam.
Charlotte Porter.
Caitlin Pride.
Tara Purchell.
Hello, my name is Kirsty Cavell and I'm a registered veterinary nurse, and I was truly honoured this year to be awarded the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons Golden Jubilee Award, so I just wanted to say a few words to you all. To the nurses joining the register, congratulations and a very warm welcome. To the nurses who have completed postgraduate qualifications, you are truly amazing. Please be proud of everything that you have achieved. I am absolutely passionate about veterinary nurses as highly skilled professionals, following structured career pathways, completing postgraduate qualifications, and specialising in areas that they are truly passionate about. So be proud of the profession that you belong to, and know that each and every day you make a huge difference to the lives of your patients and to their owners. So thank you.
Kaylee Ramsbottom.
Sophie Rankin.
Chloe Rochester.
Karen Rouse.
Gemma Sams.
Ruby Schofield.
Charlotte Sargent.
Samantha Sharman.
Heather Staton.
Stephanie Steele.
Sian Stray.
Abby Stubbins.
Kirsty Tate.
Kaylee Jane Taylor.
Rianne Thompson.
Emily Toulson.
Molly Valance.
Sky Vickery Gearty.
Amy Ward.
Claire Watkins.
Abigail Wesley Laws.
Candy Wiltshire.
Welcome everybody and congratulations. We would now like to formally welcome some of the nurses who have completed their qualification overseas and have now registered with the RCVS. The 3 overseas registrants are now being congratulated today, have passed their RCVS pre-registration examination, which veterinary nurses with qualifications that are not accredited by the RCVS need to pass in order for them to join the register and practice in the UK. All the successful applicants are now employed in the UK, and we are so pleased that they've all chosen to use their veterinary nursing expertise to support the health and wealth of animals in the UK. I hope you have a long and fulfilling career as veterinary nurses here in the UK.
Anna Molami.
Wimbikai Nandara. Quinton Sutton.
Many congratulations to you. Lastly, we would like to congratulate those who have passed the Certificate in Advanced Veterinary Nursing. This is a brand new qualification that allows veterinary nurses to develop their knowledge and skills across a variety of clinical and non-clinical areas. It is a significant achievement, and the breadth and depth of the skills learnt while taking this qualification reflects the various different paths and opportunities available to us veterinary nurses. The two people being awarded the certificate AVN this evening are
George Aspey,
Eleanor Payton,
Many congratulations again to all of our newly registered veterinary nurses and to our veterinary nurse certificate holders. At this point, I am now delighted to invite the RCVS President, Dr. Kate Richards, to deliver her formal address.
Thank you, Belinda. It's been wonderful to welcome you as registered veterinary nurses this evening. You and your families should be very proud of what you have achieved, especially under the current circumstances. The same applies to our colleagues receiving the Certificate in Advanced Veterinary Nursing. By branching out to gain further qualifications and experience in particular disciplines within the veterinary profession, you are at the forefront of driving the profession forward. I hope that soon those who have achieved the certificate or diploma in advanced veterinary nursing and other advanced qualifications will be able to have this recognised with an advanced veterinary nurse status. Reflecting on this evening, I see a veterinary nursing profession that is coming into its own, gaining confidence, kudos and influence in the wider veterinary profession and with the public. The pandemic has been very tough for everyone, causing added strain and uncertainty in both our work and professional lives. However, the veterinary sector has continued to provide a fantastic service, safeguarding animal health and welfare, and this is in no small part down to the invaluable contribution of veterinary nurses. Whether it is acting as the main contact point with clients, providing guidance and support to animal owners on subjects such as diet, behaviour and appropriate care, providing care for inpatients, assisting with procedures, or making sure the practice protocols and policies are followed, veterinary nurses are the lifeblood of most veterinary practices, and more so than ever during the pandemic. To give you an example, we recently awarded the RCVS Compassion Award to Olivia Wassell, an RVN working for the Blue Cross in London. She won this because of her professionalism, her positive attitude, and her dedication to animal health and welfare under extremely difficult conditions during the pandemic. Olivia faced the challenges with an open mind and flexibility, also providing support to numerous team members. I know there will be similar stories up and down the country, accounts of how veterinary nurses have stepped up over the past 18 months. I know I speak not only for myself, but all vets when I say to you, thank you. From the outset of my presidential year, I have made building connections that count one of the themes of my year. On an individual level, this is about connecting with ourselves, taking care of our physical and mental health. We need to look after ourselves first so that we can help our patients and colleagues. It's been an especially hard time recently, and it's important to share worries and concerns. So please remember that VetLife is there 24/7, 365 days a year, and offers a totally confidential listening service. There's no shame in phoning or emailing VetLife. The volunteers will listen or read what you have to say or share without any judgment. They are passionate about supporting those who need it. And perhaps in a year or so, you may even consider volunteering for VetLife as a way of supporting your professional colleagues. Connections that count is also about making professional connections. And I am really pleased to see that in many ways, veterinary nurses are ahead of the game with this. For example, by forging connections with colleagues in medical nursing via the VN Futures project to talk about the benefits to human and animal health of smoking cessation. This joint collaboration between VN Futures and the Royal College of Nursing used clinical research on the damage that second-hand smoke causes to both animals to find common ground between the two professions and put out a message with the aim of reducing harm and improving health for both people and animals. Veterinary nurses are increasingly forging connections with the public. There is a growing recognition in the public consciousness of the profession as a distinct part of the veterinary team, with a particular set of skills and knowledge that complements and enhances the other roles within the practice setting. And speaking as a vet, I think we also need to do more to connect with, listen to, and appreciate veterinary nurses. As vets, we can and should learn a great deal from veterinary nurses, not least the need to better recognise and compensate their effort, their expertise, and their contributions. Those of you joining the veterinary nursing profession this evening are doing so at an exciting juncture point. In this year of your Diamond Jubilee, the 20,000th vet nurse joined the VN register, and the numbers continue to rise. You can look back proudly at a 60-year history of growth and achievement, and also towards a future that has some very exciting things on the near horizon. In any future legislation governing the veterinary professions, we have committed to enhancing the role of veterinary nurses, for example in anaesthesia, and have a long-standing recommendation that the title veterinary nurse should be protected to prevent its use by unqualified, unregulated individuals. The protection of titles provides clarity and assurance to the public, so we recommend that protection of the VN title should be part of new legislation. As we will hear shortly, the VN Futures project continues to go from strength to strength, and I highly recommend having a read of its interim report to get a good sense of what's been achieved and what's yet to come. The project has ambitious aims and has already made a huge impact in maximising nurse potential, fully utilising their skills and knowledge to develop a thriving and progressive profession. I am very glad to have you all on board as professional colleagues, and I wish you all the very best for a stimulating, exciting and fulfilling career ahead. Congratulations to you all again.
Thank you very much, Kate. Now to give us the latest information about the VN Futures project that Kate has just mentioned, I am pleased to invite Jill MacDonald to the stage. Jill is a VN Futures project coordinator, an RVN who has spent 12 years as a head nurse at a small animal practice, who is a previous winner of the RCVS Innovation Award. As well as giving us the quick update this evening, Jill will also outline the aims of the next phase of the project and also explain how we can get involved. Over to you, Jill.
Thank you, Belinda, and good evening, everyone. VN Futures is a project that is jointly managed and run by the RCVS and the BVNA, and exists to determine and address the challenges the veterinary nursing profession faces, and also to identify and exploit opportunities and maximise the potential of veterinary nursing to ensure it is a vibrant and rewarding profession now and into the future. As nurses who are just joining the profession, and congratulations to you all, the project is as relevant to you as it is to any registered veterinary nurse. You are the future of veterinary nursing. The project began in 2016 and reaches the end of the first 5-year phase this year. We have recently published our VN Futures interim report, which shares an update on the project including accounts from nurses within the profession. As someone who has had a passion for and worked in veterinary nursing for over 20 years, this project is very close to my heart, and I'm really proud of the report and how far we've come. Over the next few minutes, I'd like to give you a snapshot of some of the project's achievements so far and what we have to look forward to as we move into the next phase. The framework for the Certificate in Advanced Veterinary Nursing was developed by a VN Futures working group, and this year the first students have graduated from their qualification and now proudly use the Cert AVN post-nominals. Congratulations and well done to these veterinary nurses, especially to the two of you who have been able to join us this evening. A selection of career case studies published on our website provide inspiration and information on the multitude of career options for those within and thinking of joining the VN profession. One of our ambitions is to maximise the potential of veterinary nurses, and what a huge ambition this is. Many areas of our work feed into this, and it's an area that we will continue to focus on. We have performed preliminary research on the role of the community veterinary nurse and determined just how broad the scope of this role already is. I don't know about all of you, but I didn't learn about veterinary nursing as a career at school, and we know that more can be done to make school children aware of how fulfilling a veterinary nursing career can be. In order to consider the activities we can undertake to improve diversity in the VN profession, we began with setting up an internal group at RCVS and worked alongside the RCVS Diversity and Inclusion Group. A survey from the college's Mind Matters initiative was distributed over summer 2021 to student veterinary nurses, recently qualified VNs, clinical coaches and educators to identify the key wellbeing issues faced by SVNs. The results of the survey will be used to inform an SVN Wellbeing Discussion Forum event taking place on the 3rd of November, as well as future events and projects for the profession. So that offers you an idea of some of the work of VN Futures. Now let's take a look at some of the areas we envisage we will focus on over the next 5 years. How might the role of the veterinary nurse develop? A focus on a vet-led team, with veterinary nurses being a key component in that model. A bolstered role through a reformed Schedule 3, including a greater role in anaesthesia. Protection of the title and more recognition and understanding of the VN role. A greater input to animal health and welfare, clinical decision making and communication with clients. More involvement in management of chronic disease. More focused areas of nursing within primary care practice and referral. Increased management and practice ownership roles. More structured career pathways, more opportunities to diversify and increased provision of flexible working. Development and regulation of allied professionals to expand the vet-led team. Remuneration of veterinary nurses is often cited as a key issue. How can remuneration be addressed within independent practices and corporate groups? New providers of the Cert AVN will emerge over the coming months and years, and it's exciting to consider all the options that will become available to enable VNs to focus on areas of nursing that they are passionate about and expand their skills in these areas. Discussions have started regarding the development of statuses for VNs and what this might look like. The future may well see VNs being able to pursue a status in a particular area, enabling them to become recognised leaders in their field. To maximise VN potential and to ensure VNs are utilised for the role which they were trained, we need to improve confidence and competence in delegation in practice, not just for Schedule 3 procedures, but for all the work that VNs are able to perform. Practice culture needs to embrace the concept of the vet-led team and the fundamental role that VNs have in this relationship. There are many areas that feed into maximising potential that we are likely to be working on during the next phase of the project. And much of this may need to come from VNs ourselves, to speak out, to offer our input and opinion, to have our voices heard, and to ultimately contribute to the development of our profession. Changes to legislation will require planning in the processes to implement and support this, to ensure that veterinary surgeons are delegating appropriate tasks, that veterinary nurses feel empowered to make decisions on tasks they are comfortable to be delegated. The exciting potential for development of an advanced veterinary nurse practitioner role is also discussed in the recent Legislation Working Party report and recommendations. The scope of community nursing is broad, from the district nursing role to education of the pet-owning public, education of school children on animal health and care, and end-of-life care. In terms of the district nurse role, in discussions with human district nursing educators, something that is very clear is that consideration of safety and safeguarding is paramount to protect both VNs and the public when performing a nursing role outside of the practice environment. We've developed a variety of key resources to support a VN school ambassador role, including an animated VN careers video, which is in development now. Watch this space. Our aim is to roll out the scheme in the next few months, enabling those who wish to become ambassadors to do so. We hope that in the years to come, we will have a network of VN ambassadors going out into schools and highlighting veterinary nursing. Wouldn't it be wonderful if our VN workforce better represented society in its diversity? More male VNs, VNs from Black, Asian and minority ethnic groups, gender diversity, people with disabilities and chronic health conditions being supported, and people from challenging socio-economic backgrounds with low science capital being given the inspiration and opportunity to join our profession. A VN Futures group is in the process of being formed, and we will be researching challenges of and finding ways to enhance and support diversity and inclusion in vet nursing, including ensuring diversity and inclusion is part of the focus for VN school ambassadors. The recent Mind Matters Initiative survey revealed that many VNs had witnessed or been affected by some concerning wellbeing issues. The Student Veterinary Nurse Wellbeing Discussion Forum event on the 3rd of November will explore these issues in more depth and aim to inform future projects and initiatives to help support and enhance the wellbeing of student and registered veterinary nurses. The VN Futures Chronic Illness campaign run over this summer will also provide useful data and outcomes to feed into this area of support. So, what do you want from your profession? As we welcome you to the register, it may seem too far-sighted to be asking what you want from being a veterinary nurse, but you are now part of this fast-moving profession, so my advice would be to start thinking about this now. What changes would you like to see for veterinary nursing in the future? How do you hope your role evolves? What are your aspirations for how veterinary nursing in 2030 will look? How can you and your peers help to shape the future of our profession? If you would like to get involved, you can contact me by emailing jill@vnfutures.org.uk or visit the website. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jill. That is a tremendous amount of work and some extremely exciting progress. Don't forget you can visit the new VN Futures website at vnfutures.org.uk to find out plenty of details and resources related to the project, as well as lots of information about how you can get involved. Now, we have heard earlier about 2021 is the Diamond Jubilee year of the veterinary nursing profession. So here is Tori again to tell us a little bit more details about this.
Thanks, Belinda. 60 years is a huge milestone for our profession and one that deserves to be celebrated. So we have been marking the year by highlighting the past, present and future achievements of the profession. As part of these celebrations, we have launched a webinar and podcast series, an online Diamond Jubilee Hub, and in the coming months, an ebook will be published, looking at the history of veterinary nursing. Throughout the year, we've had webinars from Jane Davidson and Jill MacDonald, discussing the past and current developments in veterinary nursing, career opportunities, and highlights of the last 10 years of the veterinary nursing profession. We've had podcasts from Jean Turner and Matthew Rendell about how the veterinary nursing profession has changed throughout the decades. And from Andrea Jeffrey on staying resilient, from Lily Burley on her role in the Practice Standards Scheme, and Susan Howarth on working towards Cert VN qualifications and the variety of options VNs have after graduating. We will also be releasing a commemorative e-book to encompass the last 60 years of veterinary nursing, the publication of which will be a wonderful way to end this special year of our profession. I would encourage you all to visit the Diamond Jubilee webpage and watch, listen and learn about where this profession has come from and where, with your help, we know it can go.
Thank you very much, Tori. Now, to round off our evening, it is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Matthew Rendell. Matthew has been working in the veterinary nursing profession for over 30 years and has a career that spans zoo, small animal practices, lecture halls and veterinary nurse council. He started his veterinary nurse career in exotics and after 5 years working his way up to a senior theatre nurse. He left to pursue the interest for zoo and wildlife nursing at the Zoological Society of London, where he worked for 13 years before leaving to take up a new role in exotics in a busy practice in Leeds. Matthew combines his work in practice with lectures to veterinary nurses and also to veterinary surgeon undergraduates, both in the UK and abroad, in topics like herpetology. As an advocate of fostering emotional intelligence in the workplace, during his role as VN Counsel, Matthew has helped champion mental well-being in the profession. Matthew's talk this evening will look at some highlights and lows of he's encountered through his very varied career and the challenges and opportunities a career in veterinary nursing can bring. Time permitting, Matthew should be able to take some questions at the end. If you have a question, here are some ways that you can send them to us. By email to the events@rcvs.org.uk, via Twitter using the hashtag VNEvening. So by all means, please send your questions in during the talk and we will do our best to answer as many questions as we can at the end. Let us know if you are happy for us to include your name in too, because that would be good. Welcome, Matthew. Over to you.
Thank you, Belinda. I'm delighted to be here this evening and speak to you. I'm just sad that it can't be face-to-face. Firstly, I'd like to say thank you to my mum and dad, which sounds like a bit of a cliche to begin with, but they were incredibly supportive to me, more than I ever realised until recently when I started my career. This evening I plan to share with you some of the kind of journey that I've gone through as a veterinary nurse and look at some of the opportunities that have presented themselves. I think things come up when you're least expecting it, and I think it's important to embrace these things when they come up. Those of you who know me will know I find it incredibly hard to talk about myself, and I will try to include later on some of the questions that I get asked frequently. So, start at the beginning. So, when I was at school, I was bullied a lot as a child. I was short, fat, glasses, and interested in reptiles, so there was lots of opportunities for me to be bullied. I solved this solution by stopping going. So when I was about 15, I just basically didn't go to school anymore. I was incredibly lucky at that point to be kind of picked up on by a PE teacher called Mick Swift. it's slightly strange that he was a PE teacher, but he was incredibly kind, and he spotted that I was going off the rails, and in a really strange and still quite confusing process, he decided that I was going to be allowed to leave school one day a week and go and do something that I might want to do as a career. So I went to see the careers officer, and at the time the careers officer wasn't particularly cued into veterinary nursing, it wasn't mentioned at all, and his suggestions were perhaps working in a slaughterhouse or continuing to work on a farm, not really veterinary nursing at all. And at that stage I was extremely lucky. My dad sorted me out getting work experience in a veterinary practice, and I stayed there and got offered a position as a student veterinary nurse. I must say I was a pretty rubbish student veterinary nurse. I really struggled with the academic side of it. I can remember being absolutely terrified when a vicious dog escaped and was running around the operating theatre biting people. And it seems strange looking back now that 25 years later I would be helping to recapture an escaped gorilla in a zoo in the UK. So yeah, it's been a very strange journey. I can still remember today the pride I got to get my VM badge. It was a huge thing for me. I'm not academically very clever, and it took time for me to kind of work through it. And I was incredibly lucky to have people around me that supported me. I've always been incredibly interested in anything that's not a domestic species, and in my first practice I was extremely lucky that I looked after all sorts of species. And I'm a bit of a reptile nerd, so I've been a member of the same reptile club for over 35 years. So Dr. Kate Richards, when she gave her incoming presidential speech, talked a huge amount about relationship and connections, and this really rung a bell with me. I think it's incredibly true that they are so important, and I'll come back to some of the examples of how that's worked for me in the future. I think the key thing that I've tried to do for my 30 years as a veterinary nurse is to always support anyone that asks me for help, be it clinical, mental health, absolutely anything. I will do my best, and I will always try and be kind and try and be honest. As a veterinary nurse, I find that the knowledge that I have is constantly growing. I have to take time to research things. This is a picture of my bookshelf at home where I'm constantly buying new books and reading them about lots of different species and just trying to enhance my knowledge. I think lifelong learning is something that I will always do, and I enjoy the challenge of new species. Working with a new species I find incredibly exciting. As veterinary nurses, we tangibly improve the health and welfare of animals every day. And I think sometimes we forget to just remind ourselves and be mindful of how much impact we have on these animals in such a positive way. Yes, I've had bad days, but I would like to think that I've had more good days than bad days. But I think the key thing is that to reflect on those bad days, but not dwell on them. I put this picture in. I don't often take selfies, but this was one of my low points. So I was working in India, and it was very late at night, and my mental health was bad. I'd been working all day, and I had one of those very unsuccessful days which involved a lot of death. And I can remember that the evening ended with my driver forgetting to collect me. So I ended up sitting by myself on a box in the middle of nowhere in India, and it made me feel incredibly low. And then weirdly, and to this day I've no idea why, this street dog just came up and sat next to me, and it was like she'd been kind of sent as a centaur to remind me why I do what I do. Sorry, totes emotion. So I think it's important to remember that you're in control of your own destiny. You guys, new qualifieds, can be the catalyst of the positive change that we need in the profession. I can remember my first 10 years just being an incredibly moany nurse. I moaned about everything, but actually did nothing. And it was at that point that I stood up and kind of realised that I had a duty to try and do my bit to improve the profession in some small way. So after a period of time, I joined the BVNA. I did my 3-year term with them, and then moved on to the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons, and then moved on to being chair of VN Council. Along the way in 2016, I met with a group of other nurses, and we decided that there was a huge gap in the market for exotics, continued personal development. So in an act that still seems quite crazy to me now, we kind of got together and said, well, let's set up an association, and we managed to do that. So I think the more you can kind of push yourselves and challenge yourselves, the more you'll be able to get done. I think moving into the politics of veterinary nursing has taught me a few things. One thing it taught me very quickly was the amount of work that the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons is doing behind the scenes. They are championing and working and representing veterinary nursing not only on the UK forum but worldwide as well. And I'm still blown away by how many dedicated and hardworking people there are within the college and the amount of work they achieve. And I feel incredibly honoured to work with them. It's important that you be proactive. Sometimes it feels hard to do what I do, but I think doing my bit for the profession is incredibly important to me. Trust me, I would much rather handle a king cobra than stand in front of you wearing a suit and tie. It's a very alien thing for me to do. So, a bit about the questions that I get asked. So, I find that lots of nurses ask me about what is your favourite animal and what's your favourite animal to work with. I've been extremely lucky that I've worked with lots and lots of species in lots of different countries, and I think my answer to this question is always quite disappointing to people in the fact that I enjoy learning new things and I like interacting with any species that I can have a positive impact on its health and welfare. And that can be a rabbit or that can be a dolphin, but whatever it is, welfare underpins everything we do as veterinary nurses, and it's really an important aspect to me. As I'm working, I'm always subconsciously assessing the welfare of the animals around me, be it chronic or acute welfare issues, and I would encourage you as a veterinary nurse to always question everything we do and challenge everything in a positive way and see how we can evolve and improve animal health and welfare. I put this picture in because it just reminds me about some of the strange species I've worked with. This was during the Kite Festival in India, and it was just very short of space, so we ended up having to share aviaries with different species of birds. There's a painted stork chick in with a greater flamingo, and I'm pretty sure that they're not having a huge amount of in-depth conversation. But in the other aviary, you can see a griffon vulture and an Egyptian vulture, and I'm pretty certain they're both looking at each other, hoping one of them dies so they can eat each other. But just looking at the resources and the things involved, it just feels amazingly honoured to work with these species. I think a question I get asked more than ever is how can people go on the same journey as I have done as a veterinary nurse? It is a lot about relationship and connections, and I act on everything that comes on. Everything that comes up and gets offered, I try and do. It doesn't always work. Things don't kind of come up sometimes, and sometimes things don't work out. But I'm currently working on a few wildlife projects as well as working in practice, and I would like to explain to you how some of these came around. Before I go on to that, I just want to reiterate some of the points that Belinda said about my journey. So my first practice was an incredibly good practice. It set me up really to succeed. I was there for 13 years and we were true mixed practice. We saw cows, horses. I did lots of swan work there and also did lots of koi carp and reptiles, and it really kind of set me up to kind of have that quest for knowledge and wanting to learn more about different species. I then moved to a zoo environment and stayed there for 13 years, and that really kind of honed my interest in non-domestic species, and I learned a huge amount about primates and different things, different species as well. And now, and then I moved to Leeds and worked in a huge referral centre as a nursing manager, and this taught me more about managerial skills as well. And now I work in a small animal practice as well as doing mostly exotic species. But I also do work for Wildlife Vets International, and I really assist them in any way I can. So sometimes it can be getting bits of equipment they need or assessing projects for their feasibility. I really enjoy being a clinical nurse. I enjoy teaching. I enjoy kind of explaining to people how to do things and kind of mentoring younger nurses and really supporting the next generation is important to me. So I'm just gonna, this was an opportunity that came up fairly recently where I had a phone call to say, we understand you're going to be in Greece next week. We're going to do 5 endoscopies on some dolphins. Would you like to come along and help with the dolphins? So as you can imagine, that was quite a short decision to decide whether to do it or not. And I went along and I learned a huge amount about them. So any opportunity that comes up, I try and act on. So just looking at some of the focal species that I've been involved in and how those projects have come around. I've worked with vultures in India for several years, and they're amazing birds, but they're in a massive decline just because various multifactorial things, but they're in decline. In India, there are lots of vets. The veterinary population is very high, but there's not many people working in a veterinary nurse type role. And this means that the aftercare and the kind of areas of recovering things that we provide really well as veterinary nurses is not really there. So I was asked if I would get involved with going over to India, and I was asked to accompany a vet called Johanna Storm. Now Johanna Storm is an incredible avian veterinary surgeon, and she'd seen that I'd lectured on a bird subject at a conference, and she kind of picked up on that. And what was really interesting about this relationship and this kind of communication was, as soon as people found out that I was going to go to India with Johanna, I got phone calls from people telling me how incredibly fiery she was and how difficult she was to work with. I found this quite interesting, and actually it didn't put me off. And it transpired that people's interpretation of being difficult to work with meant that Johanna was just an incredibly efficient worker and just didn't tolerate people faffing around that would cause a compromise to animals' welfare. And that was something that we very quickly had in common. From the first day, we laughed together, we cried together, and we talked nonsense. And in 10 days, we managed to do over 200 general anaesthetics on birds of 21 species, including the critically endangered white-rump vultures. And all the time, leaving legacy by training veterinary teams in India to be able to support these animals in the future. And 10 years on, I'm still going there. And Johanna asked me when I left her on the last day of working together to not tell people she was nice, which still makes me smile now. So I've been lucky enough to work with sea turtles. The Sea Turtle Project came around. I've kept reptiles since I was 10 years old, and my parents were incredibly supportive about me having snakes and turtles and tortoises in the bedroom when I was a child. And a vet called Tanya, and Tanya is a Spanish vet who works specifically with marine mammals and sea turtles. I'd recently published 2 chapters in a book about nutrition of reptiles, and she contacted me to ask if I would be interested in talking at a symposium in Greece about the care of reptiles and nutrition in reptiles. It was an amazing experience, and it became very clear that actually, like a lot of veterinary care cases that we come across as nurses, it's super important to have a holistic approach. And when I arrived on the project, interestingly, the head biologist that ran the project, I'd previously taught as a student and helped her with her project when I was working in my zoo environment. So it is an incredibly small world. So, and then one of the other species that I've been working with recently is the white-crowned mangabey. So white-crowned mangabeys are a medium-sized primate from West Africa. They are a species that I'd worked with in the zoo environment, and during the zoo we'd carried out a cesarean section on a female, and we'd had a baby that had been abandoned called Conchita, and she's the primate you can see in the picture. She was being hand-reared by a keeper at the time called Andrea. And I remember supporting Andrea through this difficult stage of hand-rearing this tiny, tiny baby. And then fast forward 10 years, and Andrea is now the head of the West African Primate Conservation Action, WAPCA for short. Andrea contacted me a few years ago and requested my support with trying to return some captive mangabeys back into the wild. This time last week, I was in Ghana scoping out that trip. So it is about relationships and about opportunities. I just wanted to touch a little bit about the randomness of my life now. I get lots of contacts from people, and I just wanted to give you some examples of things that have happened in the last week or two. This picture shows when I was in the zoo environment, I worked on a training program to take blood samples from Galapagos tortoises under trained behaviour. This is a tortoise called Dirk, and he was absolutely brilliant at it. And I trained him within a month, and I still get phone calls and emails from people 10 years on asking me, how did you do it? You know, what was the kind of circumstances? So these things go worldwide. So yeah, just 3 examples of things that have popped up in my WhatsApp recently. So the first one was, would you like to come to Nepal and teach people how to x-ray elephants' feet? It seems bizarre that you'd get a text message like that cold into your WhatsApp, but it did happen. And this was brought about because I published a paper probably 15 years ago about trying to standardise the approach of x-raying elephants' feet because it's done quite badly. So that was the first example. Second example was I had it's actually an email came in asking me if I wanted to teach a conference in Dubai to look at avian anaesthesia. Bird keeping, aviculture in Dubai and the United Arab Emirates is incredibly popular. So it was an opportunity for me as a veterinary nurse to hopefully go out there and help their the care that they're provided. The third one was more recently that I was contacted to see about an incident in West Africa again, where they're having lots of leatherback turtles washed up that have sadly died. And I was just approached to see if I'd be willing to go out and perhaps put some protocols in place for post-mortems and sample collection. So these things are absolutely, I still question myself as to why these things actually come out. And then the last question I get asked a lot is, why do I still do it? And trust me, some days I still ask that question myself, but I really enjoy teaching the next generation of vets and nurses. Giving that support, watching a new student vet or nurse achieve their first catheterisation and seeing how pleased they are with themselves is something that is incredibly great. I get jealous of that feeling of pride when you do something for the first time. It's an amazing feeling. But I did get to take bloods from some dolphins recently, which I'd never done before, which was incredibly cool. I have students now, and being a clinical coach or a clinical supervisor is great. And I urge you all to do this when the time is right. The second reason I do continue to do what I do is because I think any interaction you can have with an animal that improves their welfare is an incredible honour. And for me, the highest level of that honour is being in a situation to return an animal into the wild. So I've been lucky enough to work in India quite frequently. And this is just a bird, a caracal that I'd nursed that was had a wing injury because of kite string. And just being able to nurse that bird back to health and then having the honour of releasing it back into the wild and supporting that veterinary team is an incredible feeling, and one that I've never felt anything like it. The last video I'd like to show you is another remote assistance where helping with a female tiger that was unfortunately caught in a snare and just helping with her wound management from an incredibly infected carpal injury. And I think, just wait for her to pop out. I think having the opportunity to see that female tiger storm back into the world is an amazing feeling. And for me, having had in some tiny way helped to return that tiger back to the wild is a huge, huge honour and something I take very seriously. So just some closing thoughts for you. It's been interesting to share a small section of the things that I've done in my career. And it would be really great if you've got questions or things, then feel free to get in touch. But I think it's really important to leave you with one clear message, and that's to seize those opportunities whenever they present. Say yes to things whenever you can. Challenge yourself. Try and push yourself forward and keep learning every day. You might not always work out and they might not necessarily be the right things at that time, but you have to try. And frequently these things turn into very positive things and it's enabled me to have an amazing and fascinating career. Thank you very much for your time.
At home as well, that'd be really, really wonderful, and thank you so much. It's inspirational. It's an inspirational talk. So many thank you to Matthew for such an amazing talk. It's just, I think it brought tears to all of us here. I think it's always been, it's always so motivating to hear what someone has achieved in their career and what their personal highlights have been. We all have our own paths and what we want to achieve from working, and it's wonderful to hear others. And so today's has been a wonderful insight into the veterinary nursing career can offer. I would like you all to, at the start, as you start out in your career, to think about what you would like to achieve and not to get too discouraged if you don't have it all straight away, don't have it all figured out straight away. Now I think we might have a few chance for questions from the audience at home. I think I might be able to start it off with the first question first of all. Let me just get, what strategies do you have in place to help manage tough days in practice?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think the key thing for me with difficult days is to not be ashamed to have a break. When you're working in veterinary practice, it's important to take those tea breaks and take those opportunities to just have some downtime and kind of set yourself. Having a tea break, having a break, having a little wander around, taking a dog out for a walk is not a sign of weakness. You will perform much better as a veterinary nurse if you just take those time and take those moments to just refresh yourselves. Also, I think it's important to really talk to each other. So if you're having a difficult day, just talk to the team, because you'll be surprised how amazingly supportive they'll be.
Thank you. So I'll just get another question in. What advice would you give to your younger self when you're starting out in your career?
Yeah, these are really good questions, and kind of in something that makes you just reflect on what I've done in my life. But I think the thing is that looking back on what I did, the only thing that held me back at the beginning was myself. So I didn't have any self-confidence, and still lack a little bit of self-confidence now, but I didn't really have the confidence to push myself as hard as I could at the beginning. I kind of tried to stay in the periphery and in the background. And I think actually I should have pushed myself further. And I urge you all as newly qualified nurses to really push yourself, ask those questions and nudge yourself out of your comfort zone, and you will find that you will reap the rewards from that quite quickly.
Thank you. We've got one more question. What was the biggest hurdle you've had to overcome?
I think that's a tricky one, because I think there's not one specific thing within my career that was tricky to kind of overcome. The only thing I would say was it was a bit of an epiphany when I realised how many people that I looked up to had encountered mental health issues. Most of my peers and the people that I have admired for my whole career, when you talk to them and get to know them, will tell you that they have also experienced mental health issues. And it's important that we all talk about these, because only by talking about them will we be able to try and reduce their frequency within our profession.
I've got another question. Have you got any tips on building your self-confidence in practice?
That's a really good question. As somebody that doesn't have a huge amount of self-confidence, I'm probably not the best person to answer that. But all I would say is that you'd be amazed how much you can achieve when you try. So publishing my first scientific paper was, at the time, felt incredibly difficult, and now becomes like a kind of normal part of what you do. And I think just being honest with yourself, it's important to be confident but not cocky with things, and try and just share as much information as you can. As I say, being a clinical coach is a good way of just reminding you how much knowledge you actually have, and builds up your confidence when you train somebody that's really hanging on to your every word and wants that support from you. So I think, yeah, just be an educator. We are, as veterinary nurses in practice, we are all educators, but it's just making sure that you maximise that opportunity.
We've just got one more question. Could you tell me a bit more experiences about working with the big cats abroad?
Yeah, this is a really interesting one, because it's going to be one of those ones where I really disappoint people, because it took me a little while to realise that big cats are just big cats. So 160 kilo tiger is just very similar to deal with as a 5 kilo feral cat, but just much, much bigger. So I think when I first started working with lions and tigers, there was quite a lot of kudos around it. People saying, oh, you work with lions and tigers. But actually, when you get up close to them, they are just very similar to giant cats. Obviously slightly more dangerous, but you just need to work with them in the same way. And it's really important that when you work with species that are perceived as being dangerous, that you don't compromise their welfare because you don't understand their behaviour. So for example, the tigress that you saw being released, it's important to understand that she's not trying to attack people, she just wants out of that situation as quick as possible because she's a wild animal. So it's really important that we apply our same standards of care to big cats as we would to any cat. So
we have no more questions. Thank you for all of the questions, and many thanks, Matthew, again for your inspirational talk. As we draw to the close of this evening, I would just like to take this opportunity to give some advice that may help you to move on to the next stage in your veterinary nurse career. You can do anything you want to do if you work hard enough. Being here today is a brilliant example of that. I know how hard you've had to work to achieve your qualification in veterinary nursing, and I hope that you feel very proud of the results you have achieved and you've put all the work forward for that. Do what makes you happy, seek out what fulfills you, and always do things, always push yourself forward and all the learning. Don't be afraid to move to pastures new if, as it's important to always be happy. It's important to make time for things that you enjoy outside of work too. As we all need to make time for ourselves, we need to make sure that we take time away from work to recharge. The reality of veterinary nursing is that although it was one of the most rewarding careers available, there is days that are really hard, particularly when dealing with sick animals and death. This is where the support of colleagues, family and friends really comes important. There will be many happy and rewarding times ahead. Veterinary nursing is a vocational calling profession. It is in your heart forever. As with that, I should just like to leave you with a few thank yous. Thank you again to our speaker Matthew, Jill and Tori for their fascinating talks and updates this evening, and to Kate for her presidential address. Thank you to the BCQ and Imagine presentation team here today in the studio for all of their creativity and technical expertise. A big thank you to Chloe Baxter and the rest of the RCVS communications team for their organising of this evening. And of course, thank you for all for listening and watching around the country and for taking the time to join us this evening. And many congratulations once again to all of the newly registered veterinary nurses and our new VN certificate holders. I do hope that you've enjoyed having the opportunity to celebrate your achievements this evening, and that your family, friends, and most importantly, pets have been able to join in as well. Thank you and good night.
Thank you.